Carl Pei, a competent engineer and former co-founder of OnePlus known for its reputation as a flagship killer, has started a new company called Nothing. Its philosophy is that technology should have nothing unnecessary or imposed, hence the name. The company released a decent phone. Yes, there were some flaws, but its $400 price tag and unique glyphs on the back panel guided the headlines it so much needed. A year later, Nothing released its second-generation flagship, and now the price wasn't as sweet anymore. From $400 it has risen to $600, placing it among the sub-flagships. And by that, attracting fewer potential buyers, as competitors in this segment sometimes offer more. But then winter of 2024 arrives and Nothing introduces its mid-budget phone. Now it's under A series and priced at just $350. And in my humble opinion, this smartphone is far more interesting than Nothing Phone 2, at the very least because you can't sit on all chairs with this price. My name's Gene and this is Gadget Bear. I've spent 2 weeks with Nothing Phone 2A and it was a unique experience, offering amazement but also disappointment. It's a beautiful, unique, incredible device in many ways, and no wonder Nothing learned their lessons. Yet it's sometimes impractical, with its quirks and some things that drive you so mad. Nothing Phone 2A is so special, that's the word that describes it perfectly. For some it will be an outlier, but others might appreciate this unique piece in the world of budget Samsungs with the weakest specs in the universe, or Xiaomi's which mainly focus on hardware and definitely not on the aesthetics of smartphones, both with design and the OS skin. Carl Pei's attempts to turn the game around are what I like the most, but they are not so dramatic. They're not screaming, "Yeah, we killed the iPhone." No, it seems like Nothing team doesn't follow OnePlus's path, but instead analyzes the market, attempting to take the best from all companies to create something unique. And it starts from the box. You cannot open it without tearing a seal, which is not very convenient, but there's another box inside with embossed print. There's a cable and a SIM card too, both look gorgeous. No other smartphone manufacturer will bother with cool accessories for this price. Maybe they'll include a charging brick, but it's gonna be USB-A and made of the cheapest materials available. Here you'll find only the essential things, but they are stylish. The phone itself looks unremarkable, at least from the screen side. Except that it's not. While bezels are quite noticeable, they are perfectly symmetrical. Our phone is white and believe me, you should only get it in white. Sorry to all Wednesday lovers. Black buttons on white edges looks very stylish, and the back panel even more so. Of course, if you love minimalism, you might find this disgusting, but to me, this seems simply a brilliant design solution. Just compare the back panel of Nothing 2A and say Poco X6 Pro. Obviously, Nothing looks more interesting. This red thing here is just for beauty, but those glyphs, the LEDs, are there, although not as large as on the flagship models. This, by the way, even seems to make overall design more appealing. The back panel is the first pro and the first con. 2 weeks of use and there was not a single person who did not ask me what kind of phone I had in my hand. And they hadn't even seen it fully. At that point, my hand was covering half of it. No iPhone today will attract as much attention, definitely. And a few people even recognized Nothing brand, which I did not expect at all. But good luck to find a case for all this beauty. In the case, it would lose all the perks of this design. Maybe a transparent one would do, but the sheer look of such cases doesn't offer much room for diversity. The factory-applied film on the screen is a nice touch, but it's not entirely pleasant. It gets smudged horribly and scratches appear at the speed of light, but at least it offers some protection. Carl respects Apple, he even mentioned it in his videos, and it's unmistakable when you look at the shape of the smartphone. Almost exactly the same size as the iPhone Pro Max. Same sharp edges, slightly rounded at the back, not enough though, it's still not too comfortable to hold. Power and volume buttons are on the opposite sides of the phone. Is it convenient? Not for me, but from the perspective of luring old iPhone users to switch, maybe it's not a bad strategy. Not only the design here is special, they needed to make the glyphs useful, because first question that comes to mind when you look at this is why? Glyphs have several functions. For example, they can light up in sync with ringtones. It's a stylized sound, but those who hated you for not muting your phone will probably hate you even more. These sounds can drive you mad, especially if you have to listen to them for an extended period of time. You can also create your own, even more annoying ringtones using the Composer app and choosing from different preset sounds. Feels kinda like the comeback of black and white Nokias. Apart from syncing with ringtones and notifications, you can set glyphs to light up in sync with any sound being played. But please, don't do this. It will annoy you and very much those around you. But there's more tricks. You can set a glyph timer, which will gradually dim. I used this once, to be honest. There's also a flip to glyph mode, which turns off the sound of notifications and calls, showing those only with LEDs. There's a function for one of the glyphs to light up according to volume changes, which is surprisingly a great option for lighting something. You can use glyphs as a flash for photos, and my favorite, choose an app or even one contact in it, and one of the glyphs will stay on until you'll read that message. Really great if you don't want to keep staring at your phone screen. And it's informative, especially if you accidentally placed your phone upside down. You can even adjust it right from the notification itself. You can also use glyphs with other apps, but there's 3 of them, and probably only Google Calendar is used universally. And that pretty much sums up everything I needed to tell you about the glyphs. They are an accessory, meant for aesthetics, with no real functionality beside that which already exists. I doubt that many app creators will wish to spend their time writing code for supporting glyphs functionality. And for God's sake, why aren't they functional is a really strange question. Seriously, what more would you expect from LEDs? If you spend some time with the phone and this part of it bothers you still, then change those glyphs' brightness or turn them off, you can do that. But you already paid for this. If the glyphs annoy you, just get a different phone, because clearly this one isn't for you. Despite all the smoke and mirrors, there are cost cuttings in the smartphone. The only material used on the surface, besides the front glass, is plastic, and Phone 2a is really too light to feel like a premium one. The vibration motor feels really bad. At times it feels like you're holding some cheap Redmi phone from like 5 years ago. Fingerprint scanner is an optical one, shines bright enough to be annoying at night and isn't very accurate actually. And the hardware isn't exactly what you'd dream for, 8 gigs of RAM and 128 of storage in the base model. And then MediaTek Dimensity 7200 Pro, which while manufactured on a 4nm process, delivers less than a third of the modern flagship's performance. They have tried to make everything work smoothly though, and it does. Sometimes, but occasionally social media apps or super apps might lag when opening or closing, and sometimes things freeze for half a second. Heavier apps suffer from this more often, and our model isn't even the base one. It has 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. A few firmware updates arrived and things started to run a bit smoother, but don't expect miraculous performance for many years. Well, at least the update notes clearly state what's new and what's changed. Can all companies just do that? please? And it doesn't throttle too much. Obviously, don't expect to play heavy games like Genshin Impact at 60 frames per second, but you can run a casual runner to kill time. However, nothing deserves praise for not skimping on the user experience, the most needed everyday pleasures of using the phone. The screen is a pretty decent 120Hz OLED with a peak brightness of 1300 nits. Sure, it's a bit dim on a bright day, but that's really the only such scenario. And the PWM rate is reasonable, no more than 20% even at low brightness. The speakers, while not very loud, are stereo, and they try to deliver as much detail as possible. Using Nothing Phone 2a every day, you just don't feel like you're using a mid-range phone in most cases. Plus, you get the bonus of having Glyphs. They even bothered with the custom UI, opting not to go with clean Android, and it seems it was the right decision. Dotted text, even in Cyrillic languages, separate menu for adjusting the glyphs, of course. Even the back arrow consists of the same dots. A solid always-on display with settings for everything necessary, including different widgets that can be added, although there aren't that many available. By the way, you can also set up widgets on the home screen, choosing from different styles and sizes. The widgets are stylish. There are, for example, a pedometer and a weather. There's even a separate weather app, a very beautifully crafted one. Wallpapers can be generated by a neural network based on your preferences, combining one thing with another. It's nice that you can create as many of those as you like and not just set them as your background but also download them. I wonder if they'll eventually make a subscription for this feature. Or you can choose from pre-installed ones, all of which are great. Considering that there is also a choice of minimalist icons, the phone can fully reflect your style, both front and back. Just make sure to install Nothing Icon Pack, because otherwise you'll get this mix of stylized and usual icons. You can make any app icon large on the home screen if you use it often. I also liked the notification panel in landscape mode, where you also have your quick settings. The UI on Nothing Phone 2a is excellent. No junk, a minimum of adjustments, all of them are useful, it takes up to 18 gigs and overall provides a very positive experience. But unfortunately, it also has its drawbacks. For example, you can't change the vertical grid of the home screen, only horizontal for some reason. The fingerprint scanner doesn't work great, but when you try to add the same finger again for accuracy, the smartphone tells you it's already added. The translation isn't always adequate, it's important if you don't use English, but the biggest drawbacks isn't even that. There are two really major drawbacks to the smartphone. The first one being the camera. Frankly, I didn't expect flagship level performance from it, but everything here is really bad. There's a saying that all smartphones take decent photos in daylight, at least nowadays. Well, not all of them. In this comparison, you see nothing compared to the latest iPhone, and I do realize the huge difference in price. Frankly, I just took those because I already had an iPhone in my pocket. And it's not about Apple. I'm sure other Android smartphones at the same price as the 2A would have performed better, like the Pixel 7a. Portraits are especially cursed. The cutout is weird and colors are awful. Recent firmware updates slightly improved them, but it still feels like the portraits not only blur the background, but also apply the worst filter and twist curves to their liking. And it doesn't turn out well. Lens flares also creep in, the colors are strange, the highlights and shadows either go into terrible contrast or not contrasty enough. Camera gets no more than a 3. Second thing, but the most annoying one, is auto brightness. I don't know who wrote this algorithm, but in 2 weeks it never figured out how I use my smartphone. If it's dark, the screen dims to the point that it's impossible to use. You make it brighter and it dims again, just a few seconds later. And it's constant. Accidentally cover the sensor with your hand for a second, all goes black. It's just impossible to use. I think I've never seen auto brightness algorithm so bad in smartphone before. If they don't fix this eventually, I fear that you'll only be able to use Nothing Phone 2a on manual brightness settings, or if you're a very patient person, wait until they fix it, if they fix it. But the biggest advantage, along with the design and UI, I would say, is the battery. I managed to squeeze out 2 days of not very active use, and it definitely lasts a day under almost any conditions. Well done. Who should buy Nothing Phone 2a? Those who hate faceless smartphones and don't want to empty their pockets for the second model at $600. For its price, Nothing Phone 2a will be the most unique device on the market, all while having no junk in the UI, with genuinely useful and beautiful widgets and icons, and the glyphs that also carry some use, making everyday carrying of the smartphone quite pleasant. Those who appreciate those features will really love this phone. If performance and camera quality are at the top of your list in a smartphone, then this model definitely is not for you. And while you might handle the cameras manually, adjust and tweak, and often even enjoy doing so, the MediaTek chip, despite everything they've done to make it swift, will not provide as stable performance as a Snapdragon, no matter how you use it. And for a lot of people, performance and cameras are the most crucial features. There's plenty to love, and also plenty to hate. Overall, it's actually not a bad option, and the camera has chances to be improved with future firmware updates. But for now, this is far from the perfect phone. Seamless integration with technology is sometimes broken with performance, often with camera quality, and almost always with terrible auto brightness. Like the video if you find it helpful, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the new ones. Send it to your friends considering the Nothing Phone 2a as their next purchase, and we'll go to make more videos from Slav with Love. Bye.